Greetings, back with another one. Now it appears that there's been some mutterings about a possible Red Dead Redemption 3 game, and I'm not really, I've never been too big on Rockstar games, but out of all of the Rockstar games I've played, Red Dead Redemption is, by far, my favorite. I mean, I just love westerns anyway, so I just love the whole, western vibe and just the storytelling of the Red Dead Redemption games. My only criticism is just I didn't like how they did the stories backwards. I wish there would have been a chronological order, stuff like that. But I'm here on Game Rant. And they're talking about Red Dead Redemption 3 protagonist is a real hedgehog's dilemma, and let's see what they're talking about with this one. It says it's not clear if there will ever be a Red Dead Redemption 3, but it should go without saying that it would be a success would be successful. Both Red Dead Redemption games, especially Red Dead Redemption 2, are widely recognized as some of the best narrative driven open world games of all time, carried by uh, watertight writing and stellar mission design. One would assume that Rockstar would be enthusiastic about maintaining such a pretentious, not to mention profitable video game series. But Red Dead Redemption 3 would come with a host of complications as well, and these may not be so easy for Rockstar to navigate. Red Dead Redemption is all about John Marston's grappling with his past and coming face to face with the old gang members. So it's made a lot of sense for Red Dead Redemption 2 to be a prequel to that follows many of those same characters, including John. But like that's what I'm saying. They said it was about John, but I don't see anything wrong if the second game would have been the first game. Because I mean Arthur was the protagonist in the second game, but leading up to John, it's just such a bummer because after you played, like, spoiler alert, but whoever played it, but after you played the first game, John dies in the first game. He dies in the first game. Well, technically, the sequel, but I just but and that was kind of a drag for me because I played the first one, completed it. We lose John, and you play with his son. I forget his son's name, but and then the second game comes out and you play with Arthur, and then there's John again. So I just didn't understand why they just chose to do it that way. But that was my biggest criticism of Red Dead. But other than that, it was great. I had a lot of fun. Proceed. But neither Red Dead Redemption nor Red Dead Redemption 2 offers enough wiggle room for a similar premise in a future game, even though some might argue otherwise. While there's merit in belief that say Sadie should helm Red Dead Redemption 3, such as suggestions are often motivated more by players' affections for these characters than by what actually make for a good story. Honestly, the Red Dead Redemption games could be about anybody really because just the writing alone, Rockstar did a phenomenal job, just telling these stories and stuff like that. But and of course, spoiler alert. Of course, in the second game we lose Arthur. So hey, but what happened to, yeah, Jack? That was John's son name. What happened to Jack? I mean, he, for those who played the first game, he gets his revenge on the people, on the guy who was responsible for his, John's death. Could we continue to play with him because he's older? He was a kid in the first game. I mean, the second game, like I said, because they did it backwards. Like, again, I just don't understand why they did that. But I mean, Jack would be a possibly good player. But Sadie, she was a pretty tough, strong character. I liked her. So I mean, if they were to make her a protagonist in the third game, it would be pretty cool. But how will they do it? I mean, what would the time skip be? Will it be that John is already gone, Arthur is already gone, and and Dutch and them they're already gone, and it's just Sadie? Like, how would they do it? Like, will we see Abigail and all that stuff? So that's just my only thing. What would the time frame be? Let's move on down. It says, why Red Dead Redemption is facing down the barrel of a hedgehog's dilemma. Hedgehog dilemma I attribute to Arthur. Not even going to try to pronounce their last name. Can be roughly described as follows. Two hedgehogs which is huddled together for warmth during the winter months, but cannot do so without harming each other with their quills. It's an obvious metaphor for a human relationship which Spuhauer believes are destined to cause mutual harm. Argues that humans can come together as a result of a shared desire for comfort or entertainment and are constantly where am I? Oh yeah, consequently repulsed by each other due to their negative traits. Like that. That was Micah. Micah was just a guy that kind of just got on everybody's nerves. But he was a good foil though for Arthur. I liked Micah as he was written to be that foil for that kind of rift that come between Arthur and Dutch and stuff like that. I thought Michael was just a really good villain in my personal opinion. He was like one of my favorite characters in terms of the writing. Obviously Michael probably wasn't a good guy. I mean, a lot of them, none of them were saints. I mean, they were bandits for goodness sake. I mean, they were a gang. So, but Rockstar got us to care for these characters, and Michael was just that good foil. I thought he was one of the best written characters in the second game, because you always got to need that villain. You always got to need that bad guy. Continue. In other words, human connection always comes at a cost. It's a rather bleak philosophy, but it applies to Red Dead Redemption 3 surprisingly well. Audiences may think that they want characters like Sadie and Charles to return, but their most likable or compelling elements probably won't carry into this new game. This is because Red Dead Redemption 3 will have to be removed from the context of its predecessors and therefore can't enjoy the same narrative strengths. That I agree with, because the way that they did the story is John is gone, Arthur is gone, so they're going to have to start fresh. But that again, that raises the questions for me. Where would the time? Well, because I mean, obviously, I mean, when the Red Dead Redemption, first one, when the game starts, it's kind of like they're kind of society's kind of going away from that cowboyish, gang stuff like that. Because I remember Arthur and Dutch and what was the other guy? I can't forget the Herschel. I think they were all talking about life after what they used to do, because they were always reminiscing about what they used to be, this gang and stuff like that. So that was my suggestion, that they were going to make a third game. We were going to go further back. We were going to go back where John and Arthur and Dutch and then we're all younger and stuff when they first got together as a gang. Because I think before Dutch, I think his name was Herschel. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that he was like the head guy, and then Dutch came along and stuff like that. But they were all talking about that. So that's what I was thinking. I was thinking if they ever make a third game, then they might have to go back to the beginning. It would be like it would be like an origin story. They go back to the beginning when they all first met and became a crew. That was my suggestion. But if they're going to do it this way that this article I believe is suggesting, you know, everybody's gone and living their lives, and then we're now experiencing this new world, because these games take place in the early 1900s, which is like the turn of the century. So we're coming into the industrialization and stuff like that of America and all that stuff. So I mean, I preferred the way that I suggested, go back to the beginning and we can get those classic, cowboy, gang, bandit type stories and stuff like that. Because if you go further into time, I mean, yeah, you can still have that stuff. You could have, Sadie and Charles and all of our, Jack, all of the characters who are still around, kind of living that, secluded life and kind of keeping that cowboyish, rancher lifestyle kind of going and stuff like that. And then with all these obstacles in your way and stuff like that. I mean, it's a lot of things they can do. I mean, either way works for me. So, continue. Where are we? Oh, Red Dead Redemption is a replete with great characters, but their stories are over. Exactly. So they're gonna have to start anew. John Marston commonly cited as one of the best candidates for Red Dead Redemption 3's protagonist, but this will require him to follow in his father's footsteps as an outlaw, effectively. That's it, Jack. I mean, as an outlaw, effectively undermining John's mission in the first game, while making Jack less distinct. Other fans have suggested that the series follows Sadie to South America and focuses on her adventure as a bounty hunter, but this would remove the mystery and finality of her story. I mean, like I said, if she's going to be the protagonist, I mean, we don't need too much mysteries if she's the protagonist. So if the story is going to follow her, you might as well. Because like I said, when we first meet Sadie, her house is burned down. I think they killed her husband, and then and John and Arthur and all those guys kind of took her in, and she's been hanging out with them. So I mean, like I said, if you got to reveal some things of Sadie's past or what appeared to be mystery, because I don't remember too much mystery about her, but because it's not like she was around all the time. Is that like she would kind of push, because she was kind of like Rose. She would kind of like go off on her own, and then Arthur would do his missions, and then you'll meet up with her, and important plot points of the story, stuff like that. But I have no problem with the story following Sadie. But continue morphing her into yet another gun-toting action hero. The same can be said for the likes of Charles, another fan favorite. The most stunning flower can look garish in the wrong arrangement, and the most basic of weeds can elevate a bouquet. It's all about the context in which these elements exist. Characters like Sadie, Jack, and Charles are among the Red Dead Redemption's best, but they are part of a bigger, more complex recipe. They can't simply be dropped into a different game and be expected to be just as likable and compelling. In fact, they could be bastardized, turned into mere intellectual commodities rather than pieces of a greater cohesive whole. Well, like I said, I think they can make it work. I mean, this is Rockstar. Rockstar they've always been very, very, very stellar with, their writing and stuff like that. I mean, I think they could pull it off. It's just like I said again. My big question is, where will the time frame be? Are we going to go further back into the beginning, or are we going to go deeper into the future? The present time where it is. Where Arthur's gone, John's gone. Jack is grown up, and Dutchie's probably still around but older, and Herschel's gone. I believe his name is Herschel. Charles, like I mean, that's what I'm saying. So, are we going to take it to the present time, or where the second game ends, what technically where the first game ends, or are we going to go back in again to the beginning, and where we have everybody when they're younger and they first meet up as a unit? I mean, I prefer that, to be honest with you, because like I said, they have already jumbled up the timeline and all that stuff. So by doing the second game first, so with the second story first, who knows? I mean, like I said, there's no doubt in my mind if Rockstar goes forth with Red Dead Redemption 3, it's gonna be successful. It's gonna be successful. Like I said, I was never really big on GTA, but the GTA games are already they've always been successful. So why not Red Dead Redemption? I mean, yeah, Rockstar, man, get that done. They're probably working on it as we speak. But like I said, GTA is getting ready to come out, and that game is going to be a monster. No doubt in my mind, it's going to be a monster. But I know people probably already. I don't even know if it's available for pre-order yet, but people going to do it. But I just wanted to, talk about Red Dead because, just keep it alive, man. Because like I really want, this to happen. If this is a legit, and Rockstar is kind of like, keeping this on the back burner, because like I said, they're preparing for GTA. I mean, yeah, GTA is probably already finished and stuff like that, but they still have to do all of the promotions and the publicity, all that stuff. And then once GTA 6 is settled, we may get an announcement for Red Dead. Who knows? But fingers crossed for all of us Red Dead Redemption fans, though. But yeah, man, another one for the archives. 31 6 at it. It's your brother Bleak signing out. Until next time, you guys. Us.